Major developments in the case of a catch-a-predator-style sting gone wrong when a reported horde of college students chased a man off the campus of Assumption University, seemingly as part of a TikTok trend. We are getting some big updates from the Massachusetts court. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Okay, so we told you to be on the lookout for updates in this case, and they're here. 3 of the 5 college students in Massachusetts have had their criminal cases dropped, but this entire fiasco is a black mark that will likely stick around for years to come. Okay, I think that's clear. So what does it mean for the other 2 18-year-olds, and will the outcome of their cases be enough to deter young people from trying these stunts in the future? Let's get into it. So back in October, a 22-year-old man from North Carolina apparently was in Worcester, Massachusetts, and hopped on Tinder to find someone to chat with. He reportedly sent a message to 18-year-old Assumption University student Kelsey Brainerd. Now, the criminal complaint filed in Worcester District Court says that Kelsey's Tinder profile states her real age as a teen. So they messaged back and forth, and he agreed to meet Brainerd on campus. Now, he told police that when he got to the residence hall, he was confronted by dozens of students, all yelling that he was a pedophile and sexual predator and was trying to have sex with an underage girl. He claims that this mob chased him back to his car, where he was hit in the back of the head and had the car door slammed on him. Now, police took a look at the surveillance footage, and according to them, it appeared to corroborate what the man said. When police tried to talk to Brainerd about what happened, she allegedly told them there was a creepy guy who was on campus, unsolicited and uninvited. Problem there is the security cam video didn't really match up with Brainerd's account. In the criminal complaint, an investigator wrote, "The volume of students seen ascending the stairs in pursuit of him is in direct contradiction of the information provided by Miss Brainerd. The interaction depicted in the footage occurs from start to finish in 2.35 minutes and does not appear to be a random occurrence but a deliberately staged event." When confronted with the fact that the information that she was providing was not factual but falsification and lies, Miss Brainerd acknowledged that to be true. Miss Brainerd continued to diminish her responsibility by indicating that she did not know what was going to happen. Miss Brainerd continued to allude to her not being a part of this incident, and when confronted about the lies she reported last night and the lies she continued to tell during her recorded interrogation, she could not respond except to lay blame at the feet of her friend Easton Randall. Now, that is 19-year-old Easton Randall, who told investigators, quote, "The goal of the Tinder invite was to simulate the TikTok fad of luring a sexual predator to a location and subsequently physically assaulting him or calling the police." But Randall told officers things really got out of hand when someone in a dorm group chat used the word underage to describe the person that the victim was trying to meet up with, and that brought a surge of people down to the lounge area, according to the complaint. By the way, I said victim in quotation marks. Now, that criminal complaint made clear, quote, "The subject is not in any way designated a sexual predator," meaning this guy not only should not have been targeted, he should not have been chased, he was not a sexual predator in any way. Okay, so in December, Kelsey Brainerd was charged with kidnapping, intimidation of a law enforcement official, and conspiracy. Easton Randall was charged with kidnapping and conspiracy. Another friend, Kevin Carroll, was accused of hitting this man with a car door while he was trying to escape. He was charged with assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, along with kidnapping and conspiracy. And then you have 2 other students, Isabella Trudeau and Joaquin Smith, also faced kidnapping and conspiracy charges. And there was a 6th person, a juvenile, who was charged. His case was in juvenile court, according to reporting from Boston.com, but it's kind of unclear if there are still charges pending against him, not sure. But look, all 5 students in adult court, they entered not guilty pleas. They were released from custody on their own recognizance. But then in March, attorneys for all of them filed for the cases to be dismissed. And in fact, we recently spoke to Massachusetts criminal defense attorney William Corman about the argument that there's not enough evidence to charge these students with a crime like kidnapping.
So I'm a huge fan of creative legal arguments, and this certainly is one. Massachusetts for kidnapping does require some sort of prohibition on movement, and the cases have interpreted that relatively broadly. And in this particular case, I think the key question is when does the kidnapping occur? And from what I've seen, it's a little murky. It's not bringing the gentleman into Alumni Hall. It's not chasing him. And they do allow him to get into his car. I suppose the issue is when 24 college students surround this gentleman's car and hit the car and kick the car, at that point, are they preventing him from leaving the scene? If they're preventing him from leaving the scene at that stage of the game, then I do think that it does meet the the factual requirements for a kidnapping. But until that moment in time, he was able to leave. I've seen the video. You've seen the video. He's surrounded. He's able to leave. He runs up the stairs. He runs outside. But I think it's the surrounding of the car that becomes problematic. And I think that a judge looking at the case broadly will say, it's not the strongest kidnapping case out there, but it does meet the elements in that particular set of facts and circumstances. The conspiracy is a little more challenging because I do think that there may be some validity to the argument that they didn't plead the conspiracy charges correctly. Usually in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, there's a requirement that there be specificity about what the conspiracy was to do. In other words, what was this group conspiring with one another to actually accomplish? It can't just be conspiracy in a vacuum. It has to be conspiracy to do something. And my understanding is that that's still a little vague in the pleading documents, and that may be a problem for the prosecution.
Hey, real quick, I want to thank our incredible new sponsor, Experian, for sponsoring Sidebar, making this episode happen. Now, this is big because Experian can help you stay on top of your finances. After all, don't know if you know this, April is Financial Literacy Month, and Experian is all about that all year round. So the first step to take control of your credit and finances is to download the Experian app, which, by the way, has tons of free tools. Your free FICO score, which can help you boost your FICO score instantly for free with Experian Boost. Free access to a marketplace of credit card, loan, auto insurance options matched to you. Free credit monitoring with real-time alerts to keep you in the know on changes to your Experian credit profile. And let's not forget, you can easily freeze your Experian credit file for free in the app, helping protect you against identity theft. So make sure your finances are always in good shape with Experian, and use the link in the description or scan the QR code to download the free app now. Results will vary, additional terms may apply, and see the App Store for details. Well, now we have learned that the judge has dismissed the charges against 3 of these students, and the remaining 2, they face fewer charges. So according to lawyer Christopher Todd, who represents Brainerd, the judge dropped the charges of kidnapping and conspiracy against her after reviewing surveillance footage of the incident. She still faces the witness intimidation charge, and Kevin Carroll also still faces an assault and battery with a dangerous weapon charge, but the cases against Isabella Trudeau, Joaquin Smith, Easton Randall, all dismissed. Trudeau's attorney told Boston.com that the police made a lot of assumptions about what happened, and that didn't line up with the facts. All right, so to talk about these developments, not only do I want to bring back on a special guest, but not only is this special guest with us, he's also in a very special location. I'm joined once again by Sheriff Chris Swanson of the Genesee County, Michigan Department, who's actually running for governor of Michigan, but he is not in Michigan. He is actually in London. And has been so kind to, no matter where he is, no matter what setting. I think you were on with us when you were on a cruise at one point. So I appreciate your flexibility. What are you doing in London before we get into the details of this case?
Well, you make it sound like all I do is travel, but I do tell you that the cruise ship was a vacation, but this is business, and I will go anywhere and make sure I'm available for you guys. I promise you, you have a great message and you have a great platform. But today, we're flying back tonight because I flew in to speak at Oxford University as the keynote for jail education model that we started back in 2020 called Ignite. And the next day, I had a second keynote with a very dear friend of mine who you know very well.
Yeah, how funny is this? So we reached out, little behind the scenes, little behind inside baseball. We reached out to Chris to see if he was available to talk about this story, and he sends us a video of not only him, but it's him with Jelly Roll, of all people. I didn't even know that you know Jelly Roll.
Listen, his name is Jason D. Ford, and most know him as Jelly Roll. We met just about a year and a half ago, and we had been communicating for over 2 years. But I'm telling you, he's the real deal. He loves, when it comes to second chances, programs that not only straighten people's lives out, but also fix the social and the justice system holes and gaps. And we've got a great system, but there's a lot to fix. And so we partnered on multiple occasions, and he actually flew here to London and then drove to Oxford, and I presented him with the Global Literacy Award. And I promise you, this is just the beginning. In fact, he's coming back in September to do a Malone Jelly Roll show here in London. It's fabulous.
Well, I can't wait to interview both of you on Sidebar. He doesn't know that he's a guest yet, but he's going to be a guest on the show. He just doesn't realize it yet. But here's the funny thing.
Nobody tells you no.
Well, Jelly Roll, I'm actually a huge fan. I've heard him on Joe Rogan. I've heard him on Howard Stern. He's got an incredible story, turning his life around. I mean, here on Law and Crime, it's very interesting to hear. But Sheriff, I don't want to take too much of your time. I do want to get into this a little bit. Look, you and I talk about these kinds of cases all the time. Amateur predator sleuths, right? Not a great idea because you never know what could happen in situations like this. So before we even get into the charges being dropped against several of these individuals, talk to us about the danger of these amateur predator catchers. And maybe the most important question, the question that I get all the time is, how does this actually compromise a legitimate investigation into alleged criminal activity?
It's dangerous because people who don't understand that type of crime, you don't understand the kind of predator and what danger goes with it. They do not want to get caught. They are experts at not getting caught. So if you think you want to start your own Catch a Predator channel and try to do this, you're messing with danger. And there's no takebacks. These aren't just, amateurs on the other side. These are professional felons and predators and pedophiles, and they do not want to get caught. And the second thing is when you do your own, quote, investigation with no experience whatsoever, you have no baseline, you have no ability to use the evidence that you got, you compromise a potential case to hold somebody accountable. And then at that point, what is it for? Clicks and you've blown the whole case? Neither one of those are good options.
Talk to us real quick about what that contamination of evidence would be. Is it that somebody feels entrapped? They can make an entrapment argument. Is it that they weren't properly Mirandized? Was it that there's a chain of custody issue with the evidence? I mean, it's more of a specific question, but I get it all the time. Really, what are we doing that's so bad? How is this not going to result in the arrest and prosecution of somebody? I don't know if you have a real-world example of it, but what is the danger of amateur predator sleuths in terms of the evidence being presented or even a case being prosecuted?
Every case that's presented to a prosecutor or a DA in the United States has to have variables met in order to charge that crime. And those variables have to be protected, whether it's a statement or a piece of evidence. And it's called fruit of the poisonous tree. If the origination of that evidence or that statement is poison, it doesn't matter what you get. You could stop somebody and think that you're doing a great job and get it on camera and they confess to something, but it is not in the right, proper way. And in this case, you had these kids hold him almost kidnapped, and you held this individual against their will. That's in custody. You have no legitimate legal reason to hold somebody in custody, especially when there wasn't a crime. When you look at this case that we're talking about, this guy came to what he thought was an adult, a consenting adult. And so all of those things, it not only tarnishes the cases, but to those doing it, it opens you up to massive civil liability. And I'm betting that that's part of the reason why this deal was struck, because somebody behind the scenes is going to be able to roll on someone else and make another person's life very difficult.
So, Chris, the idea here that a lot of these charges, kidnapping, conspiracy, were dismissed by the court, dismissed by the judge. What do you make of that? And what message do you think that sends?
Well, remember how the judicial branch works. A judge is an individual, and they make rulings based on interpretation of the law. And that's why judges many times have appeals. That's why they have appeals that are upheld and appeals that are overturned. And if that doesn't work, then you can take to the higher court. And if that doesn't work, you can take to the state Supreme Court or the United States Supreme Court. So mind you that just because the judge dismisses it doesn't mean that it can't be appealed by the prosecutor. That happens many times. But in this case, if the judge dismissed these charges, then there was something there the judge interpreted that maybe didn't rise to the level. Now, the prosecutor could reissue on these charges. I don't know that. But the prosecutor could opt in front of the judge to say, we want to amend or drop a charge, or the judge can do the same thing from the bench. Either way, that's how a lot of these cases are resolved and taken to disposition.
You could be right. I mean, I'll just counter that and say there's a part of this that you do wonder who knew what and who agreed to what. And was there that element to rise to the level of conspiracy, a criminal agreement? Was this actually kidnapping in the sense? And maybe, they abandoned those charges because they thought they could improve it. They didn't have the goods there. But let me ask you this. The headline comes that a lot of the players in this altercation, the charges have been dropped. Does that embolden others to do things like this? There seems to be a wave of amateur predator catchers out there, and they might look at a headline and say, oh, charges got dropped. We're in the clear. We can do stuff like this now. Are you concerned about that?
Well, remember, there's 5 defendants, and charges did not get dropped on all of those defendants. On one.
Correct.
And again, without knowing what the defense and the prosecutor and even the families and how many lawyers are involved, there are probably deals that said, hey, we're going to use this individual to testify against. I'm only speculating again, but people should, if they're even thinking about doing this, take this message and take it to heart, because these folks' lives are changed forever. They were charged, and their lives since it happened have been flipped upside down by their own doing. So just because some charges are dropped, that's a sensational title, I get it, but that's how this plays out. When heavy charges are given and multiple charges and you have multiple defendants, this is all part of the disposition of the case. So I wouldn't use this as a signal to think, oh, if I did this, they can't charge me. Promise you. You're going to get hit hard, and you put a lot of people at risk, including yourself. Leave these predator investigations to the professionals, to law enforcement, so we can get these individuals off the street, charged properly, and held accountable.
I had a question. You have been a part of a lot of stings. You work closely with our friend Chris Swanson, the man behind To Catch a Predator, this phenomenon. Why do you see people doing this? Let's start there. Why do you see a lot of amateur people getting involved and trying to be the next Chris Hansen, the next To Catch a Predator? Why is this a trend?
Well, there's a big difference between Chris Hansen and the ones that we just spoke of and others. Chris Hansen only does this with the police. He does not do this rogue. He doesn't call us when he's got somebody on the line. He is part of the operations plan whenever we do an investigation. And we use his methodology in order to take that message and show others. Number one, if you're a predator out there, you're going to get caught. Number two, if you're a victim and you need to hear your voice heard, then this is a way for that platform to speak to you. But there's not a case that we have done with Chris Hansen operating solo. So there's a big difference. And again, am I looking for amateur catch a predator investigators to help us with the investigation? We're not. We've got the tools to do it. We can do it without Chris Hansen or with Chris Hansen. It just so happens he's been doing it before. It was where it is right now. But that's the difference between him and people doing it by themselves.
Chris, when you do these predator stings and you arrest these individuals, does it always lead to a conviction? Do some of the cases get dismissed? Do you follow what happens after the initial arrest?
Absolutely. And I will tell you, as the Ghost founder, we've been in operation since May of 2018, and we have never lost a case when it comes to a bad investigation. And that's over 225 predators. But we have had cases dismissed because victims do not come forward. They don't want to testify. They're embarrassed. They're scared. They feel re-victimized. And so that's always a challenge. Well, in Michigan, we just actually passed a law where their initial statement can be used as far as their testimony instead of reliving that on the stand and harming those victims. So that is a very powerful legislation. But when it comes to the actual cases, that's why it's so vital to build these up from the foundation with all of the right evidence, all of the great investigation, so we see it to the end. And we're not dismissing cases because of a bad investigation or a rogue group that are out there trying to prove something on social media. Don't forget, these are violent offenders, predators. We don't want any of them to go unaccountable and not be held and identified so we can stop the hurt of future victims.
Chris Swanson, thank you so much for taking the time. Really, really appreciate it. Hope you have a safe trip. I'm sure it was a great time you had at Oxford. I look forward to seeing you again. And good luck in the governor's race as well. We'll keep a careful eye on that as well. And obviously, you have an open forum here to always come on and talk about the work that you do. All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.